Hello. In this video, we'll be talking about Quentin Meillassoux, an important figure in contemporary philosophy, and his work on speculative realism. 20th century philosophy largely focused on human consciousness. From Kant to Husserl, many philosophers argued that our attempts to understand reality should stay within the limits of the subject. According to this idea, we can't know the outside world as it is, we only construct a reality with the perceptions formed in our minds. This subject-centered approach of modern philosophy leaves many important questions unanswered. This is where Quentin Meillassoux' speculative realism comes in. Meillassoux aims to free philosophy from the dominance of the subject and open the doors to a reality independent of human consciousness. The French philosopher offers a radical critique of a philosophical view he calls correlationism. Correlationism argues that the subject and the object cannot be thought of separately. Meillassoux, however, argues that this view leads philosophy to a dead end. Quentin Meillassoux was born in Paris in 1967. His interest in philosophy led him to the École Normale Supérieure. There he became a student of Alain Badiou. Badiou's radical thinking played a significant role in Meillassoux' philosophical development. However, Meillassoux chose to forge his own unique path. He challenged the influence of movements like postmodernism and phenomenology, aiming to confront philosophy once again with fundamental problems like objectivity and reality. His critical approach quickly caught the attention of philosophical circles. Meillassoux' philosophical project truly emerged with his 2006 book, After Finitude. This book made a big splash in both French and global philosophical circles. The book's main argument was based on the idea that the subject-centered approach of modern philosophy could be overcome. According to Meillassoux, any philosophy that puts human consciousness at the center falls into the trap of correlationism. Correlationism argues that there's a necessary link between the subject and the object. Meillassoux, however, opposes this view, asserting that reality exists independently of human consciousness. After Finitude laid the foundation for a new philosophical movement he called Speculative Realism. Speculative realism is a philosophical movement that argues reality exists independently of human consciousness. This movement proposes that reality isn't shaped by our perceptions or thoughts, it exists independently of us. Speculative realists oppose the human-centeredness of modern philosophy. According to them, we need to start thinking about reality as something outside of and independent from the subject again. Speculative realists argue for a revival of metaphysics. One of Meillassoux' most important contributions to speculative realism is his critique of correlationism. Correlationism is the view that there is a necessary connection between the subject and the object. From Kant to Heidegger, many philosophers have adopted a correlationist approach. According to Meillassoux, correlationism traps philosophy in a circle of subjectivity. If we can only perceive reality within the subject-object relationship, is it possible to say anything about things in themselves? Meillassoux proposes a speculative approach to escape this impasse of correlationism. Philosophy must dare to go beyond the limits of the subject and question the nature of things in themselves. Quentin Meillassoux, when building his philosophy of speculative realism, goes against the idea of correlationism. Correlationism puts forward that there is a necessary link between a thinking mind and the object being thought about. The roots of this view go all the way back to Descartes' subjective idealism, which is identified with the phrase, "I think, therefore I am." Giants of philosophy like Kant and Hegel also adopted a correlationist approach. To understand correlationism's impact on modern philosophy, let's think about this example. An apple's red colour, round shape or sour taste are all entirely related to our perceptions. That is, it's not possible to claim that an independent Apple object and its objective qualities exist. Quentin Meillassoux argues that correlationism traps philosophy in a kind of thought prison. If we can only understand reality within the limits of our own minds, how can we ever reach the absolute reality that exists beyond the subject? At the heart of Meillassoux' critique is correlationism's helplessness in the face of ancestral events. Ancestral events are events that happened before human history and even before the Earth existed. For example, the extinction of the dinosaurs or the Big Bang. According to correlationism, we can only understand these events through our own mental categories and interpretations. For Meillassoux, this is an unacceptable limitation. Quentin Meillassoux places the concept of absolute reality at the heart of his philosophy. According to him, absolute reality exists independently of human consciousness, perceptions, and thoughts. This view fundamentally clashes with the correlationist approach dominant in contemporary philosophy. Correlationism argues that we can only understand reality within the framework of the subject-object relationship. Meillassoux, however, rejects this view, proposing that reality has a dimension that extends beyond our mental limitations. He believes that the true task of philosophy is to explore the ways to reach this absolute reality. Meillassoux develops various arguments for the existence of absolute reality. One of these arguments relies on the objectivity of mathematical reality. One of the most remarkable concepts in Meillassoux' philosophy is the concept of facticity. Facticity can be translated as contingency. According to him, nothing in the universe is necessary, and everything could have been different. In other words, the current state of the universe is just one of an infinite number of possible states. There is a sharp distinction between Meillassoux' understanding of facticity and the classical view of determinism. Determinism argues that everything in the universe is predetermined by cause and effect. Meillassoux, however, rejects determinism and proposes that there is a field of probability at the foundation of the universe. According to him, even the laws of the universe are entirely contingent and could have been different. This understanding of contingent absoluteness means that the very uncertainty at the heart of the universe is a necessary and absolute reality. One of the most interesting parts of Meillassoux' philosophy is his view on ancestral events. Ancestral events are events that happened before human history and even before Earth existed. For example, the extinction of the dinosaurs, the formation of the first stars, or the Big Bang. According to Meillassoux, correlationist philosophy is helpless in understanding ancestral events. This is because correlationism can only understand reality through the relationship between a subject and an object. However, ancestral events are outside the perception and experience of any human subject. Meillassoux' answer to this question forms the basis of speculative realism. The fact that we can know anything about ancestral events is proof that reality doesn't depend on a subject. Science is giving us more and more information about ancestral events. Quentin Meillassoux places special importance on mathematics in his philosophy of speculative realism. For him, math isn't something made up by the human mind. It's the language of the universe, showing us how it's built and what it truly is. Mathematical rules and laws represent real things that exist whether we notice them or not. They're objective and unchanging. For example, the Pythagorean theorem, even though it was discovered in ancient Greece, is still true today. Similarly, the laws of physics are written in math and explain how the universe works. These laws show us things that are real, whether we know about them or not. Math gives us a powerful tool to peek into the deepest parts of the universe and understand reality in a way that goes beyond what our minds can normally grasp. Meillassoux aims to rebuild ontology, one of the fundamental disciplines of philosophy. Ontology is the branch of philosophy that studies the nature of being, its fundamental categories and principles. Traditional ontology usually makes inferences about being based on human experience. However, according to Meillassoux, this approach traps us within the limits of subjectivity. Meillassoux argues that mathematics should be the foundation for rebuilding ontology. Mathematics can reveal the fundamental structure of being independent of the limitations of the human mind. Meillassoux' ontology rejects many concepts of traditional metaphysics. Instead, he sees being as a network of mathematical structures and relationships. Quentin Meillassoux, with his philosophy of speculative realism, aims to build a new bridge between science and philosophy. According to him, modern philosophy hasn't paid enough attention to science's understanding of reality. Science reveals the laws of the universe, independent of human consciousness. Meillassoux uses scientific data to strengthen his speculative realism. Scientific discoveries support Meillassoux' concepts. However, Meillassoux' view isn't simply scientism. Philosophy is responsible for interpreting and critiquing the data from science. Quentin Meillassoux' speculative realism has brought a breath of fresh air to 21st century philosophy. By challenging the limits of subjectivity and correlationism in modern philosophy, it has given philosophy a new direction. Meillassoux' thinking allows us to consider the universe as a reality independent of the human mind. This approach opens up new questions and areas of exploration for philosophy. Now, our focus is on the mysteries of a universe governed by laws independent of us. This transforms philosophy from a static field into a dynamic one. Quentin Meillassoux' speculative realism has received a lot of attention in the world of philosophy, but it's also gotten some harsh criticism. Critics argue that his philosophy is too speculative and doesn't offer any concrete solutions. Meillassoux' concept of absolute reality is seen as an unreachable and unprovable hypothesis. His philosophy is also criticized for ignoring ethical and political problems. It's said that he disregards human-centered approaches. No matter how harsh the criticisms are, Meillassoux' philosophy has brought a new energy to contemporary thought. Quentin Meillassoux' speculative realism has brought back a question that was almost forgotten in the dusty shelves of philosophy's history. Can we really know what is real? The idea of the outside world, lost in the maze of modern philosophy's focus on the self, is brought back to center stage by Meillassoux' bold move. Meillassoux reminds us of the forgotten continent of thought, the possibility of a reality beyond the limits of the human mind. This call to explore is both exciting and a little scary, because on this continent we might have to leave behind our familiar ways of thinking. Meillassoux' philosophy, instead of giving us easy answers, leads us to ask deeper, more uncomfortable questions. Quentin Meillassoux' speculative realism is more than just a big idea in modern philosophy. It's like a prediction about where philosophy is headed. Meillassoux' philosophy shows us that 21st century philosophy will go beyond just what humans think and feel. Philosophy is getting ready to tackle the mysteries of the universe. This new frontier brings with it a new kind of thinker. Now, a philosopher has to think like a scientist, an artist, and an explorer, because we're facing a whole universe of ideas that hasn't been explored yet. Meillassoux' legacy will be shaped by the new energy and desire to explore that he brought to philosophy. The philosophers of the future will keep pushing the boundaries of thought.